Hello, hello, it's Big Cheds. I'm back with another chapter of My Battles with Cancer, a patient and caregiver's candid memoir. This is my story of fighting cancer. I am a cancer survivor. I had lymphoma. I beat my cancer. And then I was a caregiver for my mother when she was diagnosed. And I write about my story to help me, process my own feelings and understand what happened, but also to help other people. And I've published it on Amazon, Kindle, paperback, and audiobook. But I want it to be free for anybody who it might help. So I'm reading it here on YouTube at Cheds Trading, one chapter at a time. And that's what this is. I've also published two other books. You may be interested in trading quotes and trading wisdom, also available on Amazon. And I'm Big Cheds on Twitter. Let's jump right into it. This chapter is called New Year, Same Shit. We're in part 2. Mom has chemo. We found out about the genetic disorder. And we're getting towards the end of part 2. So let's go right into it. New Year, same shit. About a week later, I touched base with Mom to see how she was doing. And she let me know that she was headed to the hospital that following day for a PET CT scan. This scan was somewhat of a big deal. And Mom and I were both eager to find out the results. I told Mom that I thought the results would be positive, as she had been feeling well lately and she was following her treatment regimen closely. Mom told me she was worried that this scan would reveal some new growth and show that the cancer was spreading. I reminded Mom that the prior scan had shown that the chemotherapy was working, and therefore, this scan would also reflect that. In response, Mom told me that she just wanted to get the cancer out of her to make her daily life more manageable, and that was her one and only goal. Given just how disruptive chemotherapy treatment had been to my life, I totally understood how Mom was feeling, and I made sure to let her know. Later that week, I was back in my man cave and watching Breaking Bad again, and a particular scene really got to me. And it touched upon an important topic I talked about earlier in this cancer memoir. Throughout my journey, I learned how important it is to surrender control over the treatment process and to completely buy in to the medical system that was trying to save me. In this particular scene, the main character, Walter, is sitting in a patient changing room, and he's there with one other patient, and they're having an interesting conversation about their medical treatment. The other patient asks Walter, "Is this the loud one? The one with the magnets?" Referring to a PET CT machine that they were about to be scanned by. Immediately, I related to what was going on in that changing room, remembering just how loud the MRI machine was when I had a scan. And I always wondered how something that loud could be operating at peak efficiency. Walter responded to the other man, and he said that no, it was not the loud one. And then he went on to explain the science behind the PET CT machine. What happened next was the most interesting and impactful part for me. The other patient mentioned something about giving up control and about allowing the medical process to happen. And from his view, one day you're living your life and making plans for the future, and then something like this happens. From his perspective, as a result, you have to give up control of your life to the doctors. Walter sharply rebuked that notion, calling it bullshit. He claimed that one should never give up control, as he believes in the idea of always living life on one's own terms. I've always felt so strongly in the need to surrender control and to commit to the medical process. So hearing Walter say that really took me off guard. Then, after some thought, I concluded that for Walter, that may be true, but for me, it did not make sense. Walter had to do things out of desperation. He had to break major laws just to keep his head above water, and luckily, I did not have that same problem. Despite being in a different situation than Walter, I still thought it was an interesting conversation, and there is something to be said for taking control of your destiny. Mom called me that weekend and we talked about her trip to the hospital and about how she had been feeling lately. And then she told me an interesting story about the morning of the scan and how she had been dreading going to the hospital. Mom had a really tough start to her day, and she found herself dragging along and unable to leave the house to go to her Zumba class as she normally would on that day of the week. Mom told me that she was feeling down on herself and she was worried about what the scan later that day. So she decided to eat an extra large breakfast. After eating so much food, Mom had what she described as a food coma and needed to take a nap. My initial thought after hearing this was that Mom was self-sabotaging by eating that much, knowing that she would become exhausted and would now have an easy excuse to avoid going to her exercise class. As she was laying there in bed, a voice popped into her head, and it told her to fight the malaise and to get up and to go to her class. And she told herself that she was not going to let fatigue win out over her that day. Having gathered her resolve, she got right up and went to her Zumba class and was proud to report an additional 6,000 steps on her Fitbit watch. Mom described the process of motivating herself this way. Sometimes we run up against ourselves and we need to escape that inner child. After hearing that story, I was really proud of her, and it was good to know that she was fighting hard and would not give up so easily. Mom then reminded me that she had an appointment on Monday, which turned out to be the same day that I had a follow-up appointment with my medical oncologist. My appointment was in the afternoon and her appointment was in the morning, so I planned on driving in early and spending the day with Mom until it was time to meet with my doctor. In addition to wanting to be there when Mom got the results of her scan, I was also looking forward to walking around the hospital and to finding some inspiration for this cancer memoir. Next chapter, a little bit of a spoiler. The chemotherapy has stopped working is the next chapter. We'll go over that soon. This is My Battles with Cancer, a candid patient and caregiver's memoir. It's a little bit of a short chapter, but the next one's pretty beefy. I'll get into that soon. This is my story fighting cancer, and I want it to be available to anybody who it might help. So I'm recording it here, one chapter at a time, on YouTube at Cheds Trading, and my other books, Trading Quotes, Trading Wisdom, also available on Amazon. I'm Big Cheds. Folks, thank you for listening, and I'll be back with another chapter soon. Take care.